I do have access to the new Alexa Plus, the new Alexa. And I've given Alexa some personal information of yours that you gave to me. So later on, we're going to be interacting with that later on. So stick around.
And it's health data too. So it's like, data. Yeah, so it's like
perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
We are coming to you from Seattle, where we get to report each day on what's happening around us in business, technology, and innovation. What happens here matters everywhere, and every week on this show, we get to talk about some of the most interesting and important stories and trends in the news. Coming up later on, John, I want to talk about the infinite workday. Microsoft came out with
I feel like I'm constantly in it.
We'll talk about that later on. And fittingly, I did write the story at 10 p.m. at night for a midnight embargo. So I almost put that at the top of the story, but I decided not to. But first, a couple weeks ago, we had our 15th anniversary GeekWire podcast. And one of the things that we talked about on that was this big meta trend that we've tracked, where you had in the beginning, back in the 2011 timeframe, many of these companies, Amazon and Microsoft specifically, really judging their success, or at least their contribution to the region and to the economy, by the size of their workforce. And we noted back then, as part of that anniversary show, that we were starting to see the end of that. And we really saw the end of it, I think, this week with a memo that Andy Jassy, Amazon's CEO, put out. I mean, it was striking. He was just transparent about the whole thing. And I'll read here from his memo. Quote, "We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today and more people doing other types of jobs. At the same time," he said, quote, "it's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years, we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company."
These companies are just going to have to get smaller. I think that's just going to happen. I mean, you see the talk of the next unicorn company that would be created by 1 or 5, maybe 10 employees. And I think that trend is real and can happen. And these larger companies are a bit bloated in comparison to that. So if they want to keep up with the next startup, they have to operate in more of a startup fashion. And you're going to see AI first companies that are built with fewer people. And I think these large companies need to adapt to that.
This gets into that Microsoft report that I was talking about. This was a follow-up to their Work Trends Index. And one of the things that they said in this study that they did is that they see a future of smaller AI-assisted teams across many industries. But the risk here is that it could put more work and responsibility onto fewer people in the meantime, if the productivity gains aren't what Microsoft and others are hyping.
Well, isn't that what Aaron Levy told you
Yes.
from Box
Yes.
when he was on the podcast recently?
Exactly. Yeah. I kept thinking about Aaron as I was reading this report, because I asked him one question at one point, like, aren't you off at Tahoe skiing, letting your AI agents do all the work? And his point, and I've experienced this, and maybe it's just because I've noticed it more since I had that conversation with him, but the fact that I feel like I can do more because the AI is there to help me ends up adding to my own task list. And I'm taking on things with the help of AI, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm taking on things that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Well, imagine that one-person unicorn startup that may form. What is that person actually going to have to do? That person is going to have agents, AI agents, that are managing all the product development, all the customer support, all the marketing. And that one person in this hypothetical situation is going to have a lot of tasks and responsibilities, and managing all those pieces and parts, let alone the strategy of what the company is trying to accomplish. So I do think that's right, that the workload will actually go up for a smaller group of people.
What does that do to the overall landscape of jobs, though? That's the thing I'm wrestling with. I guess you have smaller companies, but more of them, more sole proprietors. I think the one-person unicorn is kind of a bit of a symbolic thing. I don't know.
It's symbolic, although you think about Instagram when they sold, I think that they had about a dozen employees, right?
Right.
And so
it was a very small number.
It was a very small number, and that was a long time ago. And
Yes.
so look at the efficiencies that a company could gain at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think there are going to be potentially fewer opportunities and jobs. I mean, this is the big concern and worry about AI.
Yes, for sure. All right, so let's talk about that Work Trends Index report because it plays into some of the bigger picture trends that I think individuals are experiencing as AI starts to rise. And we'll get into that right after this.
Brian Westbrook at GeekWire Studios. We have Money Hacks presented by BECU, joined now by Stacy Black, lead financial educator. This episode's topic is all about career change, whether you're changing your jobs, you're faced with an unfortunate layoff, or you have a windfall like the lottery. What is the plan that covers all of that?
In all of those scenarios, it's important to have a plan in place, and that includes a budget, a plan for savings, a plan for spending even.
I love that. We've got a lot more in this episode of Money Hacks presented by BECU. I'm Brian Westbrook. Check it out at geekwire.com/BECU. Stacy, my plan is to win the lottery.
Me too.
Listen to the full interview and find more episodes of Money Hacks at geekwire.com/BECU and find more information at becu.org. So this Microsoft report that I've been talking about, I really dove into this thing. The trend that they identified is something that they call the infinite workday. They also call it the triple peak workday. The idea that you've got a time in the morning, the afternoon, and then the evening when you're working. And the key underlying factor is the sheer level of distraction that is happening to people during the day as they're hit with Teams or Slack notifications, emails, random things. And one of the lines that stood out to me, this is a paraphrase, not an exact quote, but is the idea that you go into your inbox in the morning and you're letting the rest of the world prioritize your day. And the fundamental thing that's happening, that's leading to this triple peak workday, as they're calling it, is people are working on the weekends and at night because that's the only time they can find the peace to focus. I mean, we've been dealing with this for years.
See this play out in our own organization.
As soon as we had the ability to check email at home, to work at home, I'm thinking back to the newspaper, because remember, there was a time
and the
when
mobile
it was,
phone too.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a time when there was literally a PC on the desk and a voicemail on the desk. Remember those wonderful days?
Yeah.
And you would leave, and those things would not be with you at home.
Right.
And it's hard to even remember or fathom that being the case. But
It's the new world of work. It's the old entrepreneurial adage. It's great being an entrepreneur. You can choose whatever 80 hours a week you want to work.
exactly.
And so I think that's probably common for not only entrepreneurs, but people in the modern workforce.
So Microsoft is saying that 40% of workers check email by 6 a.m.
I know you're one of those.
Oh, for sure. Well, I'm up typically at 4 a lot of mornings still. I've gotten back into my very early morning wake up, and that's when I get some good stories done. They say meetings after 8 p.m. This is what I would hate. Meetings after 8 p.m.
I don't do meetings after 8 p.m.
They're
Rarely.
They're
rarely.
up
I mean, we have events that go well past 8 p.m. often, but
meetings.
no, not. I don't schedule meetings.
Well, think about
after 5.
international workforces, though.
Yeah, that's
you could
true.
See
That's
where
true.
that would be the plan.
Yeah,
the
that
case.
is that's true.
Meetings after 8 p.m. are up 16% year over year.
I bet that is the global workforce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're saying that weekends are increasingly a refuge for focused work. And they're saying that AI, on the one hand, is exacerbating this because it's ever present and always available, just like email and other forms of communication. But they're saying that they think it could actually still be the solution. And that's one of the things that always frustrates me a little bit about these reports. It always reminds me of Lucy and the football and Charlie Brown, where you think, oh, this time, we're actually going to kick it. And the tech industry always solves one problem and then that creates another problem. And then you've got to go solve that. That said, here are Microsoft solutions. Reconfigure teams to focus on outcomes rather than traditional functions like marketing, finance, or engineering. Train employees as agent bosses that oversee virtual workforces of AI agents, and apply the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 20% of the work that delivers 80% of the results. They also talked about giving employees flexibility, empowering them to work in ways and at hours that work for them. So you can see a little bit of this, but of course it also plays into Microsoft's own business
And then you
strategies.
have certain companies that are requiring people to come back 5 days in the office at the same time.
Yes.
So that doesn't really work out. Like, hey, be in the office 5 days a week, 8 to 6, and then do all these other things. I guess we're referring to Amazon here,
Right.
because they're the company that has required folks to come back in the office. I doubt there's an expectation that people are working in the office, especially with global teams there, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then they're done with their work. Do you think that actually happens in
know.
the Amazon ecosystem?
Probably not.
No.
So it's kind of the worst of both worlds.
It's the worst of both worlds. Absolutely.
No.
So to Andy Jassy's memo earlier, and the other interesting thing about that memo was they reference that I saw some reporting that said that they were going to get to these lower numbers through attrition largely versus layoffs. So this is one way to drive the attrition. It's like, yeah, be in the office 5 days a week. Also, what did you call it? The triple
peak work day.
and do the triple peak work day and work the weekends and organize your own AI agent workforce for yourself.
Yes.
That's a lot to take on.
To address that specific point you brought up, Amazon did not announce any kind of layoffs associated with Andy Jassy's memo. He just basically put out this memo saying,
I thought I saw someone
Yes,
report
we
that.
reported that.
We reported that. Okay.
We reported
that it was largely going to be achieved through attrition.
attrition.
Yeah.
But then again, Amazon is a little bit more distributed in terms of its authority. So whereas Microsoft will come out and say, we're cutting 3% of our workforce, 6,000 people, it's across the board. Amazon is more likely, when they do job cuts, to say to product groups, hey, these are the expectations. You need to look and see whether the team you have is the right team for these things that we're going to do within the budget that we're giving you. It's a little bit more delegated,
Yeah.
and what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a little more entrepreneurial.
Yes. So that is one reason why it's not clear what exactly is going to happen at Amazon. But Andy Jassy has clearly set the mandate that if you want to be one of the people who are still around, you better be one of the people who are learning how to use AI, not only for your own personal productivity, but for the company's own strength and strategy.
Well, I took us down a rabbit hole here, but
That was good.
What was there? Were there other components to the report that stood out to you?
Those were the key things. I think just the notion that AI can accelerate the burnout and the chaos if you're not careful and purposeful about adjusting how you work. And for me, it made me realize that just individually, we've got to realize that we still have human limitations, even though we're being increasingly augmented by algorithms and machines. And that's just my own, I've got to internalize that because I get excited. Mm-hmm. Look at all this stuff I can do that I couldn't do before. Not only new capabilities, but new capacity.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the projects that you just take on because you get excited about
Yes.
I think we'll talk about one maybe later in the show that I wasn't expecting you to take some of my health data and turn this into an AI. And then the other one, which I guess maybe we'll tease ahead to a story if that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think I also got you and Taylor Soper, our editor, excited about a story tied into the University of Washington and their graduating class coming out of the computer science and engineering department about, gosh, could we use AI to analyze who is actually graduating from the University of Washington and where they're going to work, which I think is a fascinating story.
Right. And the big question there is, are they feeding into Microsoft and Amazon and Google and Apple and other tech giants, or are they fueling the startup ecosystem?
And what I think we're already going to see, and I think we know the answer to that, is they're going to big tech, which is largely, it seems.
Yes.
The challenge there is like, really, is this the time that you'd want to be going into big tech? And I've seen some reporting and listened to some podcasts on this in terms of truly technical people should really be taking the flyer right now on starting something and being entrepreneurial, because boy, it seems like it's high risk going into Amazon or Microsoft right now.
To the point of what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't you take an alternative path and just start something on your own when you're in your early 20s and use all the technical knowledge you've gained from a great university like the University of Washington to start something new and fresh versus the high risk proposition of going to a big tech company, which might pay a lot right out of the gate, but your prospects might not be as great in 2 to 5 years.
This is another great teaser because hopefully we'll be talking in the coming weeks with Ed Lazowska from the University of Washington. And I think this would be a perfect topic to discuss with him as part of that larger conversation. Okay, but I do want to get to the new Alexa and what I told Alexa about your own personal health information.
Oh, great.
So let's get to that.
Everyone wants to hear this.
Let's get to that right after this. You're listening to GeekWire. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop with John Cook. You're not an Alexa user. You don't? Do you have a device at home?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you talk to Alexa?
Yeah. Just to turn on
Yeah.
the local radio stations that I want to listen to.
You don't turn on lights or anything like that?
No, I do no home automation with it.
So Amazon, as many folks out there know, is coming out with a new version of Alexa. It's called Alexa Plus. And it has a bunch of new capabilities. They're all driven by generative AI. We've talked about this on the podcast over the past few weeks. And I've gotten a chance to test it. I've been testing it for about a week and a half. I'm working on a story.
When does it
about
come out?
Well, it's rolling out through what they call an early access period. So if
you got an early test version of it.
I did. And to be clear, I asked Amazon to get the test so I could try it out for purposes of a story. Other people out there sign up for a waiting list. So far, they say it's rolled out to about 1 million people.
Oh, okay.
But out of, tens of millions of Alexa
and
users.
what is the cost of Alexa Plus?
So if you have Prime, it's free. You can get Alexa Plus on a standalone basis for an additional charge, but if you're a Prime member, it's free. So
it's really just updated software that you're putting onto your Alexa devices.
Well, yes, and you don't even really have to put it on. It's just automatically updated. They'll say
you sign up and it's now on your device.
Yes. Yeah. Once you get accepted into the program, they say, hey, Alexa Plus is ready for you. And you say whether or not you want to upgrade, and then it makes the upgrade. So one of the core differences is you can have just an ongoing free-flowing conversation for a certain amount of time with Alexa without having to re-invoke the wake word, as they call it. So you don't have to keep saying, Alexa, and then do it over and over again. And so I've been testing it out with a bunch of different things. One of the interesting applications is the fact that you can send and upload information to Alexa that you want to be able to access later, or you want your family to be able to access later. Just as an example, we had an event at my daughter's school this past week, and I knew that we were going to want to talk about it after we ate dinner. And there might be some questions about when it was, where it was, what we needed to bring, all that sort of stuff. So I took the email that I got from the school about it, and I just forwarded it to Alexa@alexa.com, which kind of creeps me out just a little bit. But they know, since it's coming from the email address associated with your Amazon account, that it's from you, and there's an automatic filter that just sort of puts that into your Alexa account. You can also upload it from the app directly from the chat. So for purposes of this, you had a funny email, and I'll have you tell everybody about it in just a second. But let's just see what Alexa does, because what I did was I took the email that you forwarded to Taylor and me from earlier today, and I literally just forwarded it to Alexa. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I've got Alexa here on my phone. That's one of the nice things is when you update to Alexa Plus on your Echo device, your eligible Echo device, then you also get it in the app on your phone. So I'm going to invoke Alexa here. Hi, Alexa, are you there?
Present. Just call my name and I'll come running. Not literally, of course. What can I help you with?
Okay. Hey, Alexa, did you get that email that I forwarded you about John's health information and the appointment that he had? Was it a teeth cleaning?
Dentist appointment.
Yes, I have the email about John's appointment. The email confirms a dental appointment for John on Friday, July 18th at 10 a.m. with a
we'll talk over where it is.
isn't mentioned. It's likely a routine dental checkup or cleaning given the context.
Hey, was there some sort of conversation in that email about a cancellation of the appointment and questions about whether the chat interface that John was interacting with was a human or a robot?
Yes, there was a conversation about an appointment cancellation and the nature of the chat interface. The email shows that John's original appointment was canceled because the hygienist was sick. Regarding the chat interface, John asked if the dental practice was using AI to set schedules and craft messages. The practice responded that while some messages are automated, the more involved conversations are still handled by humans.
Thank you.
For now. Alexa forgot that part of the...
Have a great day.
Alexa forgot that little witty comment that came actually from the dental office when I asked them if I was communicating with an AI bot. They said it was a human, and they said the conversations are still...
I remember that cheeky response now. The dental office replied with a playful ha-ha. We're still human over here, smiling face emoji, when John asked if they were using AI to craft messages. Looks like they've got a sense of humor in that office.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, Alexa.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
So, hey, look at that. I didn't have to say Alexa over and over again. She was even listening when we thought we were done. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little too long. I've talked with the Amazon folks about this. They're like having to adjust, like, how long do you wait after someone just stops talking? It's still early access, but I mean, look at that. That is something you would not have been able to do with the old Alexa on multiple fronts. The natural flow of the conversation, and also the fact that it was able to very easily access information comprehensively that I just forwarded in an email that it otherwise wouldn't have known. Okay, but tell us, let's move away from Alexa for a second. This was an interesting experience.
It was an interesting experience. I think it speaks to the challenges we have in this current environment of AI being introduced everywhere, that you really don't know if you're communicating with a human or a bot. And in this instance, the messages seemed automated. They were coming through some sort of unique messaging platform, which kind of set me off. And the responses were almost instantaneous. And that's why I was like, wow, this is odd that I'm getting such quick replies. Now they just happen to be on top of it, and we're getting this resolved very quickly, which is great. But
some sort of person in their 20s, no doubt, who was just like
multitasking
boom, boom, boom.
and banging this stuff out. But it did set off some thoughts of mine that it might be a AI bot that I was communicating with, which seems like a fantastic application, right? That you're going back and forth, something that's tied into their elaborate scheduling platform that then can, when I'm saying, hey, I actually can't do that date that you suggested, I'm going to be out until probably July 7th, anything happen after that. And they were able to, well, the person in this case was able to quickly look at the schedule and offer some times, but you can imagine a bot being able to look at that scheduling, complex scheduling, and suggest times that I could go in for a dental cleaning.
First off, there are systems out there that do this for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, this is anytime you've called any sort of customer support line, you've interacted with these types of systems. But I guess what was interesting to me is I thought I might be interacting with a bot here, and I was interacting with a person.
How do you know that?
It's possible it still could be
the bot could have been posing as a person, because you said...
Yes, it's possible.
Because after these rapid responses on your scheduling, you said...
I gave up. I didn't want to keep pressing it after they said they were human. But
you said, I'm curious, are you using AI to craft these messages tied into your scheduling system, or is this being crafted by a real person? And they said, we're still human over here, emoji. And then,
I mean, there's some tip-offs that it could be AI.
And you said, okay, you were so fast in responding, it made me think it was automated. And then they said, Dear John, we try. Some of the messages are automated, like the confirmation you just received. However, the more involved conversations are still human for now.
It reads a little bit like AI.
It does, and especially
like Dear John,
the parentheses too.
Yeah,
I'm not convinced that this isn't AI.
We'll keep digging into this.
Yeah, posing as a human. But here's the other takeaway that I had on this. If you want a job that's protected from automation, go into dental hygiene, because when you're sick, the appointments get canceled.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a good thought. It's something I've been thinking a lot about, especially as I have a teenage kid who's maybe going to go into the workforce here in the next 5 years.
Who's definitely going into the workforce in the next 5 years, not maybe.
Well, I don't know. Is there going to be a workforce for him to go into? I don't know. But I do think about tasks like dental hygiene. I think about the other thing that's happening in my life right now is, unfortunately, we have to remove a very large tree from our backyard that had split. And boy, that is some hard work that requires human precision to do, at least for now. I can't imagine a robotic tree removal service that is as technical as what they're doing in our backyard.
Because it's tight and you got to...
yeah. I mean, it would... I'm sure you could program a robot to go up there and do it. And it's also, it's hazardous work too, which is... So maybe you could make the argument that this is the type of job that would need... You know, what is interesting is 5 years ago when we were covering AI, you remember this, and everyone was like, oh, we're going to have all these robotic systems. And the things that are going to go away are like the person who's limbing off tree limbs. And no one was talking about engineers and developers and coders losing their job. That was still the bright spot in the economy. Like, oh, go into coding, go into programming, because you're going to have this great future ahead of you. But the tide has just 100% turned on that. And I think there's absolutely a movement to some of these professions that require hands-on work, like a dental hygienist or tree removal or a carpenter. I think those are jobs that are safer in this environment.
Yes, 100%.
But anyway, I guess I'll when I go in for my appointment, I'll ask them what software they're using and if it's an AI bot that is communicating with me. Yeah, the Dear John...
Yes.
It's kind of a tip-off, right?
And not only that, but the way it says, the more involved conversations are still human, parentheses for now, parentheses, period. It seems too perfectly punctuated to me.
Yeah.
I think this is a bot.
Okay. Why don't I go back to him and...
Say, I'm not convinced. I think you're a bot. Prove it. And then what could you say?
I guess let's have a phone conversation.
Yeah, call me.
Call me.
If you're human. Call me if you're a human.
They're going to think I'm really, really bizarre person.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to go to the
very strange thing to be going back and forth with your dental office on.
They're going to be like, you know what? Your appointment is canceled.
Yeah, that's right. Why don't you? It's time for you to find a new dentist. That's going to be the outcome of this.
All right. Well, hey, on the Alexa thing, I will keep testing it. I'm not quite at the point where I'm able to come up with a final assessment.
I'm trying to think of the use cases where I guess you would forward emails to Alexa, and then you can essentially, when you're commuting, you would have a conversation with Alexa to say, summarize this and what was the meaning of this.
Yes.
I guess. I don't.
And of course, you can do that with ChatGPT and Copilot and Claude and everything else. The differentiator that Amazon has is they've got these devices in the living room that are communal that families can use, but their challenge is they're not integrated with email systems. They do integrate with consumer calendars, and it's sort of this unusual positioning where, you know, I would want them to have access to some subset of my email so I wouldn't have to forward it in anticipation of needing it.
Like if you're a Gmail user.
Yeah.
Is there an equivalent Google device in the home?
Yes.
That would
There is.
integrate better with your email system?
Possibly. And I haven't tested it. I think they're Google Home devices. I haven't tested those extensively. I've had one in the past. And that maybe is something I should do just to have a fuller picture of exactly what's going on with this Alexa interface and how it could be differentiated from other folks out there. At any rate, I am still very early in my testing of this Alexa Plus, and I'm really actively looking for ways that it can improve my life. All right. Hey, thanks for chatting this week. It's good to catch up again.
Great to see you, Todd.
Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
Thanks for listening to the GeekWire Podcast.